Very frequently, what we see in our tournament games, if you are a player from like 1400 or even 1300 to 22, 2300, and you probably are if you are watching this DVD, then you will agree with me that frequently your opponent tries to play opening less known just for several reasons. One of the several reasons. First, either confuse you. Second reason, maybe not to confuse himself. Third, just to get through the opening, and also he may be in love with this opening. And this opening may not be one on the list of one of the most important openings and popular openings, but something he may like to play, and something he doesn't have to learn a lot of theory for playing. So one of these kind of openings is d4, knight f6, is bishop g5 move. What I would recommend is e6. Now, the e6 is not a better move than knight e4 and then c5 or d5, but I can only recommend one of the continuations, and I think e6 is one, if not the best, one of them, one of the best. Now, white goes e6, black goes e6, and suppose white goes knight f3 or knight c3. White can play any of these moves. What we're trying to do is we're trying to play we want to play h6 next move. And knight f3, we go h6. Now here, white's dilemma number one. They can take the bishop, the knight, in which case they get very strong pawn center, take the knight, followed by e4 next. Or play simply bishop h4. Now, if white plays bishop h4, the simplest way to play for black, I would recommend, is g5, bishop g3, knight h5. Now you see, now we're going to get white's dark square bishop. If they play bishop e5, we're going to go simply f6, which is going to transpose, but after e3 we play knight takes g3. That will happen the same if white played e4. It wouldn't make any difference. e3 or e4, knight takes g3, hg, and then black develops the bishop on g7, plays d6, knight to d7, and maybe even b6 and bishop to b7. Black has very easy game. Weakness on a king side, h6 and g5, is hardly relevant at all, because black is going to play queen e7, and black can wait which way to castle. If white castles king side, just as a plan, I'm showing you the plan here because move order is not that important. Position closed, and everybody plays on his half of the board. So then one interesting plan is to castle queen side. It's a dangerous plan because white can always go a4, a5. And the other plan, which I like better, is castling short and then possibly playing rook e1 and f5, or maybe even e5 in some cases. When you play e5, you should be concerned a little bit with the weakness of light squares here, but this is the plan. Now, if you play rook e1 and f5, I think you simply have an advantage, because you have to notice bishop on b7, bishop on g7, and knight on d7. You have very good minor pieces. You have two bishops, and eventually when you open the position, it may pay off. So this is the simple way to play for black if white retreats the bishop. You don't see much. You can hardly see a good player playing in this position playing bishop h4. What they do, they play bishop takes to f6. Now after queen takes f6, white can play e4, and this is the good right way to play for white. They have a pawn center, and they have some possible way for getting some advantage. So what should after e4 black do? Black goes d6, knight c3, and g6. Now this is a very promising plan for black. If white goes queen d2, we go bishop to g7, and white may castle king side, the queen side. Notice that if white castles king side, they will never get anything. They hardly get anything even after castling queen side. Now after bishop g7, white castle, black goes a6. Now the purpose of this move to stop possible knight b5, or after knight c6 to stop possible bishop b5. a6 is good move. Queen e3. Now what would we do? What will we do if white goes e5 at some point? We simply play queen to e7. After queen to e7, we later on gonna develop knight to d7 and put pressure on e5 pawn. So white prepares for e5 anyway. Queen e3, we go knight d7, and this is, I'm quoting you one of the games between two grandmasters. White played h4 and black played b5. Now notice that black doesn't want to castle yet because they are afraid to maybe get under a strong attack after g4. So what black does, black continues development, bishop b7, and saying maybe they will castle queen side. So after h4 b5, h4 b5 will play. So they want to play bishop b7. Now rook e1, bishop b7, and here white played e5. Black goes queen e7, and here if white plays ed, then black goes cd, and black has great position. Both bishops are open. So what white did, white goes h5, and after g5 they play e takes d. It's a good players play for both sides. C takes d, and now d5. Now notice why white played h5 before they went d5. The reason why, now if black tries to close position with e5, then you see the f5 square becomes weak after bishop d3 or bishop f5, and possibly later after g4, black's dark square bishop becomes very bad, and white dominates central light squares. So however white's strategy fails to knight to e5, now of course black is not giving away light squares. Knight to d4, black castles, d takes e, f takes e, and white goes f3. Now this position is clearly better for black. Black has big advantage. Now you see you have very powerful bishop on g7, bishop on b7, and knight dominating on e5. Black is totally winning. Rook a c8, and what happened in the game, actually bishop e2, and black should have played simply b4. Black went wrong and eventually they lost game, but that's where we can stop. After b4, knight e4, and queen c7, we can see black is obviously having big advantage. You see, knight takes e6 is not possible because of queen takes c2 checkmate. So that's the indirect way to protecting the pawn. And then Black can go bishop d5 later. They have absolutely dominating position in the center. So black went on losing game, but they had very good position. This is actually a typical way you can play against this opening.